Okay, welcome to the first of my videos on how to use Microsoft Office 101. The first one's going to be on Word. That's what I'm going to talk about today. It's basically going to be a very quick brain dump of all the buttons, what they do. One of the main reasons why you use Word as a word processor is because it has a button for pretty much everything. I'm just going to very quickly show you what a whole bunch of buttons do very quickly. This is an old copy of a draft thesis that I was writing, and there's a whole bunch of junk in here that we're going to use as examples. So starting off, this is just part of my introduction. I assume you know what copy and paste does. So I'm going to move on to fonts. If we grab a chunk of text, we can come in here, we can change our font. I'm obviously using Times New Roman, but you can pick Arial is quite common, and Calibri is now the default in Word, I think. So these are very common sans serif fonts. They're arguably all acceptable. Something that is certainly not acceptable is the Old English text. So just because you think it looks cool doesn't make it a reasonable font. Where'd times go? Give me back my times. There we go. Font type, font size is here. You can change it there. You can also change it by mashing these buttons here, or you can hit Control Shift full stop, or greater than symbol will make it bigger, and Control Shift less than symbol will make it smaller. Quick hotkeys. Hotkeys are great. If you want to yell at somebody on the internet, you can make everything uppercase, which is great, or you can make it lowercase or whatever you'd like. Some very useful options in there. Bold, italics, underlined, Control B, Control U, Control I. And the same again to undo them. Strike through for reasons. Subscripts and superscripts, super useful for you when you're going to be writing in math. So if you want to write 4 squared, you might see this fairly often written. What you want to be doing is 4 to the power of 2, right? And if you want to write chemical formulas like carbon dioxide, 2. And you can get subscripts and superscripts. There's hotkeys for this again. So Control Shift equals will put you in superscript mode, and pressing that again will take you out. And Control equals will put you in subscript mode, and pressing it again will take you out. So if you are writing a lot of maths or a lot of chemical equations, this is a super useful skill to have. You can change, you can highlight things, unhighlight things, no color. No color. And change text color. Fairly self-explanatory. Awesome. So that's that first chunk of stuff in font. In here in paragraphs, we've got bullet points, numbered lists, weird numbered lists. I'll scroll down because I have right at the bottom of this document some of my listing stuff. Here we go. It's a list. I created this as a numbered list with multiple tiers so that I could do my headings and then my subheadings and then my subheadings, so on and so forth. And this is how I actually created most of my documents. So you do that with the numbered list up here with a multi-level list. You can, obviously use bullet points, numbers. In here you can make lists where we go numbers and then letters and then Roman numerals and then numbers again. Whatever suits the particular task that you are doing. The other thing you can do is you can reformat these things. So you can change from, change your hollow dots to squares to solid dots, whatever you'd like. Really useful point. If you hit Tab, it should take you down one list level. And if you hit Shift Tab, it backs you up. That has saved me deleting and rewriting many a dot point in PowerPoint. So they're dot points. I'll just go back to my intro. There it is. Yeah. Justification. So this text is all left aligned, meaning it's lined up against this left-hand edge. Pretty common, generally the default. It's how you probably do most of your work. You can center things. Occasionally you'll center figure captions. You almost always center equations. You can right align pretty much never. That's pretty useless. But this one here, justified or left and right aligned, is really common. Pretty much every novel you've ever read would have been justified text, and most engineering reports you'll ever read will be justified text. Get used to it, basically. It looks very good, it's very professional, and when we get to columns, which I'll show you in a minute, it's a very nice way of breaking up text for a human. Line spacing is another option. So this is all double spaced. My whole thesis is double spaced because it was going to be reviewed. So my whole thesis had to be double spaced. But you can change that. Say you got to the end and you decided, I don't want this stuff to be double spaced. You can come in here and go, I want you to be a pretty default spacing. And it'll do that for you. So double spaced. This other spacing. 1.15 I think is the default in Word. Something else I want to show you. So I'll do this in a... No, I'll do this. So I separated my paragraphs by basically burning a carriage return or an enter carriage return. If I don't, you can see that it's very hard sometimes to distinguish where one paragraph ends and where the next one starts in a case like this. This is one of the reasons why justifying your text makes it easier. Much easier to see that that has ended, but still. What you can do in this paragraph, you can come in here and put in a spacing after. It doesn't have to be big, something like 8. What it does is every time you use a carriage return or an enter, it gives this tiny little bit of white space in here, and that's enough to break up the paragraphs for a reader. So that's another thing. There's a few other options in here, but they're the ones that are most common. Sometimes you'll put a space before heading, is quite common. All right, that's that. You can change line spacing there as well. This one, this is my favorite. It's my favorite button in Word. Turns on these cues, and I know a lot of people hate these things, but I think they're amazing. So what these things do is they show you every time you've used a bit of punctuation. So if you use a space, it puts in a little dot to let you know that there's a space there, and every time you hit enter, it puts in one of these cues. And it shows you where you've got enters and where you don't. Can be really useful for things like I always put in one enter before a heading, and without cues, sometimes, depending on how you set your spacing up, gaps and things like that can start to get weird and hard to see exactly what's going on. You turn them on and you just go 1, 1, 2, delete, fixed it, great. So they're really good. Another thing that's really useful about them, where's a sentence end? There we go. If you've accidentally put 2 spaces after a full stop, and because you're not using a typewriter, you don't need 2 spaces after a full stop, you can come, it can be hard to see that, again, without the cues. Come in and wipe it out. The other one that's common is a space there for something that used to be 1 paragraph and you've split it into 2. Sometimes it carries that space down. And it's really hard to see that on a screen often, but it's really easy to see it once you've printed it out. And it's really annoying to print a 50-page document and then go back and delete a whole bunch of spaces that weren't meant to be there. Anyway, cues are great. I use them all the time. All the time when I'm editing. Sweet. Now we get into styles, another awesome thing in Word that I never used for a long time. So let's say I've acknowledged that this is better. I don't like double spacing anymore, and I really wish that I could get my whole document and transform all the body text into single-spaced or a slightly different font or something like that. And I want to do that to all my body text, but I don't want to do it to my figure captions, meaning hitting Control A and grabbing everything is not really going to help me. I may not want to do it to my headings either. What's really cool thing in Word is if you come up here and you look at these styles, you get different styles for different bits of writing. So normal, standard body text style, what most of your stuff is. But you can also say, all right, you are a title and you are heading 1. And you can give them these styles. And then you can work through until you find another thing and you can be like, all right, you're heading 2. And you can set your whole document up this way. Want to find another heading? There we go. Whatever, heading 1, heading 2. And this is going to be really, really useful because you might sit there and go, oh, but that doesn't help me, Dylan. You said don't use color and use a particular style for headings. Not a problem. Right click, modify, Times New Roman, 14, bold, black. Okay. And it changes that for me. And if I come up to where I used it before, it will have changed that one for me too. So you can modify these headings. So I can come into here, my normal text, right click, modify, Times New Roman 11, and fully justified text, because that's how I should have done it in the first place. Format, paragraph, spacing, multiple, 1.15, after 8. Okay, okay. I just reformatted my entire document. So this is a super useful thing for you to be able to do. If you have that bit of foresight and you set it up properly in the beginning, it allows making huge, big changes really, really easy. I also just cut 16 pages out of my document, which is lovely. Okay, so that's how we do styles. Oh, that was the other thing I wanted to point out with styles. Do your captions, because they're probably not formatted the way you want them either. So they have their own style, and you can modify them as well. Awesome. Styles are cool. So that was the Home tab. I'm going to move on to the Insert tab now. This is also a very, very useful tab with quite a lot in it. So you can insert a cover page or a blank page. I hope that they're quite self-explanatory. Page breaks, really useful, particularly as you work through bigger documents. You'll get to the point where you're going to want things to start on a new page. Major headings will always get a new page. You might want to make sure that you don't split this table over multiple pages, so you might want to make sure it starts on a new page. The way to do that is with page breaks. Because if you do it with carriage returns like I clearly had here, when you add some more text somewhere else, it pushes your title down and makes it float in some random spot. So the way that you solve this is by, instead of hitting 4 enters after this table, I'll delete some stuff to make this slightly more obvious for you. You come up here and you put in a page break, and then this will stay there even if I mess with the formatting beforehand. So that's super useful. Tables, we can insert tables. Chuck in a table. Cool. Some weird and wonderful table. You can come into here and you can make it look slightly better if you would like. That's an option. The other thing you can do is insert a caption. So insert a caption, table 1, great table, whatever. This is important. So you can tell it that this thing is actually a table, and it did default to it, which is nice, and it knew, or it guessed, that the correct position to put a table caption is above selected item. And it puts in the table for you. Awesome. You may have noticed it also renumbered my other tables. So this is now table 1, and this is now table 2 and table 3. And it updates these things automatically if you put in captions. So never, ever, ever insert a text box or something like that. Just put a caption in, change its style, do it like that. That's useful for a whole bunch of reasons, like cross-referencing. When we want to insert a figure or a table and we put our caption in and we know that we have to talk about it in the text, we don't actually write figure 3 here. What you do is you go insert cross-reference. I want one of my things that I've already called a figure. And it goes, oh, here's all the things that you've made figures in your document already. Which one do you want? I wanted figure 3. I don't want the whole caption. I want only the label and number. Insert, and it puts it in there for me. If you then go and change something and put in a new figure, all of these things can be updated automatically. So you don't have to go back and waste time doing all of this manually. Do it all automatically. Word has a button for that. If you do it properly, it'll make your life so much easier. On figures, you can insert a picture easily. You could use that button, or you can just also grab a picture and drag it in and drop it. Right click, insert a caption. No, it's not a table, it's a figure. Yes, it goes below selected items. Civil Projects 2017. Awesome. Went in, made it figure 1. Excellent. All of that worked really well. One thing to be conscious of with figures that can again save you time in the future. Come into Picture Tools, which just kind of automatically appears when you click on a figure. Figure width 14.98. This one 14.98. That's lovely. This one 14.25. This sticks out like a sore thumb. This looks awful in a document. When you flick through it and all the figures are slightly different in size. If you standardize for yourself at the start how big you're going to make all your figures by default, then you can just put a number into here, everything will be the same size, and it'll be easy. You might have a very good reason for changing it, and if you do, fine, do so. But having a standardized figure format and layout is really useful. Things like, are you going to center your figures, or are you going to leave them left aligned? Are they going to take up the full space? As I've said many times before, you never put text beside the figure. Never want to see text beside a figure. So never come in here and do any of the text wrapping, stuff like that. Just leave it alone and it will be fine. People who worry about all their formatting getting mixed up because they slightly moved a figure is probably because they were doing it wrong. Just put them in and leave them alone. Also, make sure your figures don't ever go into your margins. You shouldn't be dragging figures out so that they do this. They have no place in margins. Margins are for white space. So figures and equations should never end up in your margins. Okay, that's another really good reason to have a known Picture Tools figure width 14.98. Awesome. We're still inserting stuff. Pictures, great. Whatever. You can put in shapes for reasons. I don't know why I don't use shapes. Awesome. I've never used any of these buttons before, ever, so I'm going to move on. I'm going to talk about comments later. Headers, footers, and page numbers. These are also super useful. So, headers, obviously go up the top of your document. You can get there by pressing the header button. And you can get some useful things to put in, like titles of the chapter that you're working on or something like that. A common to go in headers. Or you can just double click up the top and you can get something and go whatever. And if you do that, you will get it on every single page in your report. So there are things that you can do to make some of this really nice and really automatic, but it generally puts stuff everywhere in your report. Same deal with footers. Double click, you'll get in here and you'll get the footer. Probably the most useful thing, insert page number. Put it wherever you want to put it put in a page number. You can format them and make them do all sorts of fancy stuff, like be Roman numerals or be letters. I'm going to show you sections later, and you can get numbers to change and restart and do different stuff. But I'd expect you to have page numbers from now on. Page numbers. Easy. Yeah, don't use text boxes. Don't use word art. I know I used word art as a joke. Don't. You have no place using word art in a formal engineering report. You do for equations, though. Equations are going to be useful to you. So if you want to make an equation, 56 is equal to 7 times 8, you can do that. Don't ever be taking screenshots of equations and cutting them up and putting them in as figures. It's horrible. Don't do that. Make your own equations. If you want to do multiplied, though, there is a symbol for that, and you should start using the multiplication symbol and the divided symbol and all of that. You should be doing that. Another cool thing the equation editor does, divided by 7 equals 8, puts it in as a fraction for you, which is nice. You can put fractions in yourself. Come on. There we go. And put in different ways of doing it. And you can kind of go nuts with the stuff up here. So it's a fraction, and then I can put an exponential inside of that fraction, and then inside of the exponential, I can put another fraction. You can do whatever you want. You just sort of type into here, 7, 12, 3, 700, whatever. Who cares? You get the picture. So you can do that. Another thing that's really common for us is to use symbols, particularly Greek letters. So you've got an insert symbols as well. You come in and put theta or pi or whatever you want into here. But get it from insert symbol. That all works. If you're doing a lot of this, you might actually decide that you want to know a few hotkeys as well to make life a little bit easier for you. So Alt equals brings up the equation editor automatically. And if you're in here and you go /beta space, oh, I got this the wrong way around. If you do that, direction slash, it gives you a fraction. So Alt equals, if you do this direction slash, it gives you a Greek letter, which is awesome. So that can be a lot faster when you're trying to do a lot of maths and stuff very quickly. Another cool thing that works in line with hotkeys is there's a bunch of what they call alt codes. So if you hold Alt and hit 0176 and then let go of Alt, it will give you a degree symbol. Degree symbol. There you go. So you don't have to bother going up to insert symbol every time. There is an alt code for pretty much everything if you want to remember what they are. Another way to get a degree symbol, I use these a lot. Control-Shift-2, let go of everything, and then hit space. Will also give you a degree symbol. So the things that you use commonly, you will probably want to learn the shorthands for. And that's our Insert tab. I've never used the Design tab ever, so I'm going to move on to Layout. Okay, so Layout's another really useful one that you're going to need. You've probably just left everything as default before, but as you move through and do more reports, you're going to need to change these layouts. First one's margins. You may or may not have been asked recently to change margins on a document. Done. It takes about that long. You can probably see on this document, actually my left margin is much bigger than my right margin. This was me doing this because it had to be printed and bound, and when they make the book, they need quite a large margin on the left side for the binding process to work. So you can come into customs and make some pretty weird and wonderful margins. All right. Orientation swaps you between portrait and landscape. I'm going to come back to that after I do breaks because it's something pretty cool. In that, size is, I hope, fairly self-explanatory. Columns. You won't use this often, but a lot of journal articles and things are written in column format. So it is something that can be useful to know that you can make stuff to column. As promised, I said this is one of the times when justified text is super useful because this is very clearly two nice columns of text. When I don't have that justification on, if I just have left aligned, it's still obviously two lines, but it just looks messy. So you'll find anything that's done as columns is very commonly done as justified text. Just looks much cleaner. Oh, we're in layout, aren't we? Columns, done. All right, sweet. Let's move on to breaks. And there was a bit of this document, this one. All right. So we talked about how you can put in a page break to make something start on a new page. Fine. There's other options as well. And one of the really useful ones is this thing that's called a section break in Word. So if you use a section break, looks just like a page break. I'm going to put another one in down here. What I end up with, if I turn my cues back on, so the section break there, section break there, that's a section break, yes. Cool. Then I come into here, I can do a few weird and wonderful things, like go, you, a landscape. And it changes just the pages between those two section breaks to be landscape, and it leaves everything else portrait. So if you've got a big figure or a Gantt chart or something like that, and you want it printed landscape, you can do so. So that's an option. The other thing that you can do is fiddle with your page numbers. Come into page numbers and format them. Continue from previous section, or start at 1 and B Roman numerals. If I zoom in on this, I've got Roman numerals in one section, and then I get Arabic in another section. And then it should go back. Oh no, it should not go back to Roman numerals. Yeah, and then I can change this again in different sections. So you use a section break generally. Towards the start of your document, you'll find you'll have a whole bunch of these types of pages. A title page, a statement of originality, acknowledgements. These are all pages that I don't want counted in with the rest of my report. So I would give all of these Roman numerals, and then I'll put in a section break here instead of a page break, and start again counting from 1 with Arabic numerals from here. Cool. That covers that. Things like line numbers are things that you're probably not going to use often. Gives numbers to every one of your lines. It used to be useful for editing. It's not common anymore. I've never used indents, so I'm not going to bother wasting your time on them. References. Now, this is a very useful tab again, and my word is going to start freaking out a little bit here because I have 2 third-party softwares to help with referencing, which are probably currently fighting each other, but that's okay. All right, so if we, come on, it's frozen on me, there we go. Okay, so if I came in here and I wanted to put a reference in, all you have to do is come up, here, insert citation. So Mendeley is one of my add-ons and Endnote is one of my add-ons, but this is the default Word one. Insert citation, add a new source. Author, Cuskelly. Oh, actually, this is much easier to do if you edit. Helps get the formatting right. My PhD supervisor. Cool. Like that. Title, great, paper, whatever, okay. And it inserts that reference there for me. Oh, that was year. I probably should have done that better. This was year. So because we've got this set to APA, this is going name and then date. And I apparently wrote this paper in the year DBG. That's fine. So it puts in that reference for you automatically. And if you wanted to cite that again later, you should be able to. Insert citation again, go back, grab that same one, bam, and cite it again. So once you've got them in there and you get a little bit of this library going, it becomes really easy to cite them. And then when you get to the end and you want to put in your reference list, it's super easy. You just go to the bibliography, give me a reference list, and it will automatically chuck it in and format it in the APA style for you. So if you do this properly, it will save you huge amounts of work. As I said, I've got these other ones, Mendeley and Endnote. I'll just see if this will bring up Endnote for me. It should automatically open Endnote, but it takes it a little while. I used Endnote for my thesis. If it's the one that has 7,010 styles in it, I didn't like any of them, so I made my own. You can do that. It's an option. Will you open for me? I just wanted to show you my library. Look, go away. To give you an indication of how this thing expects to be used, just trying to pull this up on the screen for you. There we go. You just get a big list of references, and when you need the particular one that you're trying to cite, you can just come and grab it out of your list and insert it. Anyway, the point of this story is that the concept of memorizing referencing systems is kind of dying if it's not already dead. Get a package that helps you. The university library supports Mendeley and Endnote, so if you have questions, you can go to them and they will help you. Awesome. Is there anything else in there I wanted to talk about? Oh, insert table of figures. Again, same deal as before. If my Word doesn't freeze, I needed a table of figures, which is up here somewhere. There we go. You can just go, hey Word, I'd like a table of figures, please. And it will go, there you go. Done. And that's taking all of the captions that I put in before and their corresponding page numbers and all of that. So if you set it up properly, shouldn't be any more work for you. I've never used this tab before in my life. Moving on. References. Review. Review's super useful. So particularly if you were to write a document and then give it to somebody for, I don't know, proofreading, really cool thing is this review tab. So you can come in and you can leave comments on the report for somebody. This intro sucks. Do it again. Hopefully slightly more useful comments than that. And you can also come in, if you turn on track changes and go, I'm just going to delete that. And instead of such as, I would like to say therefore. And then I can send this back to the original reviewer, or you can send it back to yourself and they can come in and have a look at this and go, yeah, this person's deleted this. Yeah, right, fair enough. I accept that they want to delete that. Therefore, no, I don't like the therefore. I'm going to reject that insertion. And you can do revisions like this. So comments are really useful. Changes are really useful. And you just use this button here to turn off and on track changes. So I've turned it off now. So now if I write, I don't get that red underline. If I turn it back on, I get it again. That's all good. This button's super useful if you've forgotten to turn on track changes and you've got a copy of a document that you've been editing for a while and you don't really know what you've changed and what you haven't changed. This can be super useful. Cool. I pretty much never use this either. The only thing that I find useful in here is the ruler. Your ruler, it shows you things like where your columns are and where your borders are, and you can move stuff around if you want. You can also put in tab stops with this thing. which determines how far a tab goes. Oh, that's far more options than I thought it was going to be. Oh, go away, go away, go away. Yeah, tab stop. And it determines when you hit tab how far it goes over based on where you place that. This one's for centering things. That's for doing right justification. One of these is for doing decimal points, which is pretty cool, and you can make all your decimal points line up. Decimal tab. But I don't use it often. Endnote's my referencing thing, which I mentioned before that I got as a third party. So is Grammarly. It's a third party thing that I just downloaded. Other than that, that's a whole bunch of buttons in Word. I hope that you found this at least mildly useful and it showed you something interesting. I'm going to make another video on PowerPoint and how to quickly make images in PowerPoint, and probably one on Excel at some stage in the future. Thank you very much.